check. Sound. Looks like we were up and running. Good morning, good morning. A very, very, very quiet morning in Tokyo here, happily. Pouring rain. Keep everybody home. Finally, the last few days, not really, well, the last week or so already now, Tokyo has started to follow these instructions and stay home. In fact, I'll be the only person in this building now from yesterday through till Monday. I think Dei-chan is coming Monday afternoon. She's now doing some test printing on the 6th print, the June print in this year's series, and it is looking really good. I don't have a sample for it yet, but that sometime next week we'll be able to show you a sample. It's really, really, really looking good. Okay, you know what's on the schedule for this morning? We're going to be continuing with the carving of the Patreon key block here, slowly poking away. I haven't moved an inch since I saw you on Thursday. I've been doing test printing on another print, which maybe we can look at. We can take a look at some proofs from that later on. Not the whole picture, but we can look at some proofs, maybe the hair carving and stuff. And then we have a show and tell. Before I came down this morning, I remembered. I looked through the shelves up there and I picked, which is for me a very, very special item, very interesting item for me from the collection for today's show and tell. Some of you may have seen it before. People like John who have visited here, maybe I think he's actually had a look at this, I don't remember. Anyway, there will be a show and tell item. So let's have a go, let's get to this. Let's get to this. News, of course. Cameron, he told me it was okay to tell you. Cameron is a father, again. He's had a second baby. It was yesterday afternoon. And there's a picture. Maybe I can remember. Let me take my life in my hands and try and type this. I think that's the URL. If I get it wrong, it'll just break. There we go. Cameron sent this picture late last night, late yesterday afternoon. And I'm sure he's not here right now. He's still busy with the family, very much so. But it worked. Okay, there we go. Is the sound the rain of the autumn? It is raining. We're hearing a drip, 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 drip. I also have a tiny bit of fan noise coming from my laptop. You tell me. Mix of rain and fan gives us a white noise. Look at your seatbelts, Cameron. So he knows it's his second one. So I don't know. It's a girl. It's a little girl, Eden Hilker. And Cameron's first is a boy, and a really, really genki, just all over the place, energetic boy. So I think their feeling is that hopefully this will be a bit of a more quieter kid. Who knows? Whatever. I doubt very much he'll be here this morning, but whatever. I'll pass on. You know. The bamboo water thing, you mean, where it tips and then suddenly knows. No, there's some kind of, there's drizzle, drizzle, drizzle. There's some kind of larger drip. It could be from my ceiling or something next door, I don't know. There is a drip that happens every minute or so. Kaplomp. No, it's stopped now, of course, we're talking about it. There it is. Gets the rain more. Very pleasant. Too bad I'm not back in Raleigh. That might be the first one finished, I guess. So could be salad. The roll is cut. Chopsticks are cut. Too much. We've done the steak to fix next week. Fish is finished. I think that's it. The first one might now be actually cleared. We're not going to start persuading here, so I think what I'll just do is just move on to the second. That's the first upper one done. Let's just move on now to the second one. Zoom out a bit here, get a little bit of time. So the line work is all now cut for the first one, and I've cleared out smaller areas that just need the small chisels. Larger areas that I'll be tapping, I'll save those now until the bottom half is done. So let's move on now to the bottom half, and I'll peel off a bit more of the paper. The paper came off quite roughly, so we can take off a bit more of this paper. Doing this piecemeal, cutting the lines first, the outside borders first, and then the insides, really made it much more difficult. You normally put everything down straight away, paste it down, do a wonderful peel. Doing it piecemeal like this really is troublesome cause for error. That's where these mistakes came from, because I'd done it bit by bit without really thinking clearly what I was doing. So it's really not a good way to do it. Anyway, let's move on. Let's grab a corn here. This looks like a piece of bamboo skin. Let's grab a corn and start carving. Licking my fingers may get me the virus. Well, I've been alone here for how many days? I think I agree. If I were out shopping and came back, then yeah, there's a risk. But given that I've been alone here for X days, I don't see how there could be a virus here that I might pick up on myself. I'm not sure. But I guess the order of habits are habits. So this is it's a piece of bamboo skin. Bamboo skin with shadow underneath it. I really did mix this up, and there's parts missing here as well too. So let's redraw this a little bit. Oh, John's not watching, is he? Oh, John is watching. Recovering bearings is difficult. Yeah, the bearing recovering thing. There's only one way to get through it. It's just got to do it, and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. And eventually you get better at it, of course. Seems in practice. It's like playing a musical instrument or something. When I did my proofing upstairs the other day, started the octopus proofing. Of course, I had to recover that bearing. I showed it to you last week. And I'm rusty. I'm rusty. After years and years and years of not doing regular printing, there's no way I'm going to try doing that on the stream. Just too rusty. Listen, here's a good conversation going on. Talking about cheese. Dave's in a real nice position for cheese. Now I've got a couple of kilograms now in the fridge. About a kilogram of red cheddar and another kilogram of white. It's mostly for the muffins. When I make the muffins at lunchtime, I throw the cheese on top. Today is going to be a muffin day. I make 6 at a time. 2 for lunch, and 2 the next day, 2 the next day. I'm a boring guy here. What's my muffin recipe? I don't have a recipe as such I can share. I'm not a baker. I'm not a cook here. You've told a story here on the stream that there are things such as muffins here in Japan. They've got the same name, but they're not the same thing that I know from back in Canada. Here in Japan, a muffin in the bakery is a little cake-like object, very light, very sweet. It's okay in its place, but it's not a thing that would be part of a meal. It's just a little cake you have with tea or something. But if you gave a muffin from like a coffee shop in Vancouver to a Japanese person, they would find it almost inedible because it was too heavy and dense and rich. So the same word has really different meanings in 2 different contexts. So the muffins I've been making here, I use Canadian muffin mix, different types. My mother buys them for me usually when I'm over there. I've got a bunch of them upstairs that's been supplied by her, and I bring them back each time I go over there. But using them by just straight, the Canadian muffin mix, just using it as the instructions say, comes up with something that even for me now is a little bit dense and heavy. It's not so pleasant to eat. It's really rich, it's really healthy, but it's really kind of dense. So the sort of solution to these two things. The Japanese muffins are too sweet and light, and the Western ones are kind of dense and heavy. I just use both mixes, half and half, roughly half and half. So I have a bunch of muffin mix packages upstairs in the sizing cabinet. And I just usually cut them half and half. Half the Japanese mix, half the Western mix. The usual stuff, eggs, milk, blah, blah, blah. And it comes out, really, to me now, a very, very pleasant balance. These lines are fun, such pleasure. Long, curved, beautiful sweeping lines. This is the core of our work here. So much fun. I think it's the wood carver's equivalent of a sword stroke or something. Off with his head. These lines are just like the hairlines I finished carving last week, the hairlines for the lady in the octopus print. These are much, 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 much bigger, but it's the same concept. Long, sweeping lines, have to have nice shape, end in nothing. But I guess this might just be a good point. Should I take a break for a second here and show you that carving, the test printing from that carving last week? Hang on a sec. What's the time here? We're still on early. Video stutters. Nothing at this end. It's all clear, clear, clear. Nothing red. Everything's green. Wi-Fi clear and okay. Bouncing rain. Nothing else on the machine interfering here. Not sure. Dropping frames like crazy. Okay, well hold the show and tell for a minute until this, if your stream comes back on the show. I'm not touching the computer. I'm not doing this on purpose. Unless it's the rain. Does the rain have something to do with Wi-Fi? I don't think so. I'm an optical fiber. Nippy cheek. My carving has improved tremendously watching Twitch. Give me a hint. What are you watching? Can I learn too? Oh, Maria. Yeah, that's a ghost from the past. My God. Like when was that project? Back when I was a little kid? No idea. I don't even remember what I did. She showed me the block Dave did for a previous compilation. I don't remember. I have no idea. butterfly. It was the butterfly. What did I do? I'm sorry, I still don't remember something about a butterfly. Fine lines. Is that one of the ones, did I do it in that circle? Did I play that same game, carving around and around and around and around in a circle? Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm remembering now. Just trying to show off what a... Whatever. Okay, if the Wi-Fi here is okay, let's pause this for a second. I'm just going to put this aside. Well, in fact, just leave it there. The carving last week, you saw it here. The carving last week was the hair on the lady from the octopus. And I don't remember how much I explained about it at the time. The original print, let's find the original print. I'm just going to tell a story rational. In the original print, this is a printout from an old book. The eyes and faint hair are on one block. And then there's a darker block with hair coming down into it. And what they had done, the faint hairs were all really carved, really quite nicely. And then the dark hairs, they had done it quite a bit roughly, just stick. There was no attempt to match them up with the underneath hairs. I mean, there was really no need to. This was very, very, very small scale. They just needed the effect of a dark hair on top of the faint hairlines. But when I came to my copy last week, what I tried to do, because it's a defect in my character, what I tried to do was pretend this was a much larger print, and I tried to make the hairs line up. This is my key block. This was the one that will be faint hair, and over top of this will be printed the dark black one, which you saw me carving last week. And here is the rough printout of the dark black one. In fact, this is a part-way printout of the dark black one. When you put the two together, I did a test proofing the other day, and we find when I put the two together, here we go. We've got now, this is the printout from my key block, and on top of it is just a rough quick printout of the black. It's not printed really so dense black yet. We're just trying to get it to line. And it turns out that somewhere along the line I didn't quite get it all perfect, and the one by one hairs, when you line them up here, they start to get, okay, it's lining up still here, but down here it doesn't line up anymore. At the end it lines up. So somewhere along the line I got the hairs a little bit off. They don't quite line up perfectly. Whatever, and without the microscope I can't see it. But the next challenge is going to be, when I print this thing, we want this part to fade into zero. And some of them are still, look at this one, you can see, some of them are still too strong. And this line we also want to fade to zero. So waiting on my desk now, what I've got to do is go back to this block. And I've got to try and taper off a little bit more the ends of the black hairs. And that's something I'm going to do this morning, probably maybe at the end of the stream or after the stream's over. And then go upstairs and do some more test printing. Because this line is what has to become invisible. But anyway, so far so good. It's come out pretty well, I think, actually. And the other part, the part that we had to prepare, this is much, much better in this version than in the previous version. You know about paper, the original one was printed on junk. It was just scraps, bang, scrap, bang, scrap, bang, scrap. Just throw it out. It was a junk, trivial production on very, very cheap paper, and just blown away. It was a very cheap book. Here's one of the test prints here. The only test print I've got now is from before I carved that down. This is one of my own test prints before I carved the black back. So this is not the real thing. This is the light underline hairs and the black ones at full length. So after I did this the other day upstairs, I then cut the black back. But this gives you an idea what the print is going to be like, you know. Here we are. This is the lady. The colouring, I think I'm going to stick with this kind of colouring, a little bit of a tint for the octo. The lettering has come out not so bad. It's sort of okay. There's a bit of a problem with the lettering. When we get to the part that's halfway across. And if we go back to the original again, you can sort of see what's happening here. This is a different scale. This is a smaller scale. The original book, because it was a left-right book, was carved by two different people. This side was carved by Mr. A, and this side was carved by Mr. B. And my guess is Mr. B might have been an apprentice, because look at this. The green is much rougher, much scrappier. The lettering, all the letters are fatter and thicker than on this side. Now, in a normal book, nobody could have cared less. This was the text for a porn book. Like, who cares? It doesn't matter. But Dave, of course, is doing this without the gutter. Dave is doing it as a single print. So we've now got this, and the lettering on one side and the lettering on the other side are different. And I think when we put this print out, we will just have to put some sort of explanation with it, showing what's going on. And for the green, of course, because it's the same guide here, most of the green looks basically the same. It's come out okay, you know. We can look at bits and parts of this. The octopus texture, the lettering. On the right hand side we will have an embossing. It's looking good. So today is Saturday morning. The plan now is to do a little bit more light carving on this hair block, then get upstairs, do a proof, scan it, and then get the website open sometime this weekend, ready for taking orders for this thing. At last, at last, at last. Video problems? I don't know. Again, I'm seeing nothing wrong at this end. I'm seeing green lights all the way across my dashboard here. Is everybody having trouble here? Is this Twitch? Is it me? Well, I think some people are okay. I guess perhaps it's regional. I don't know. Yeah, some people okay, some people problems. I think I'll just ignore it. I don't think it's at this end, so. But what is the schedule? 8:42. When we get back to this, the real show and tell, the old print show and tell, remind me about that at about 9:15 or so. And the show and tell today, it's something I've had for many, many, many years. This is not something I got from auctions. And it's something when I show people, whatever, let's talk about negatives. It's not fair to tease and stuff. Americans especially will enjoy this. It's interesting thinking that John is over here, John Amos is over here watching this, the guy who designed this thing, because he's seeing this carving, but his own carving, prints that John's been making recently, are not so much line-based. They have lines, there's a drawing, but they're landscape prints in a sort of a Shinhanga style. And most of the carving, most of the blocks are patterns and shapes of rocks and trees and sort of indeterminate shapes. Those prints really don't have this kind of ukiyo-e type line work, smooth flowing lines and stuff. So John has drawn this for me, but he himself, I think, doesn't actually carve this sort of work. If ever, I don't know. And sometimes the color blocks for landscape prints, and I've done that sort of stuff too a long time. The color blocks for landscape prints can really be sort of more a dot here, a dot there, a dot here, a dot there. It's difficult work. The objects you're carving don't have specific shape. You don't carve a line like this. The things you're carving are all just random sort of dots and shapes and things. And when they're printed, they make up the view of the object. But the carving is not carving objects, it's just carving shapes. We're doing okay, or are we down or what? It's not a question of professional. You're a professional in your own right, in your own sphere. It's just a different style of work. Part of the other aspect of this too is there's a reproductive aspect to this and an original aspect. I'm carving John's design here. I'm doing reproduction work. I'm not creating an image here. I'm just trying to put the thing that John created into a physical shape. When John's working on his own prints, because they're his own design, he's got complete freedom to do whatever he wants. He can sit there carving a mountain block and decide that, well, no, I don't really want that there after all. I want it over here. And he can modify and morph and change things. Will this chibi have color on it? Yes, there will be color blocks. I guess probably 1, 2, 3 faces. Possibly 4, possibly 5. I don't really know. And when John sent this to me, he sent it to me with sort of a rough Photoshop-y type thing, but he didn't do actually color separations. He's asked me, Dave decides what it is, so I have to work this out myself, I guess. Okay. I think some of the previous chibis, John actually did a Photoshop layering separation. This time he just shaded in and stuff like this. So have to think about it. Maybe I'll go back to him for a bit more input, or maybe we'll try color separation myself. I don't know, whatever. We'll see when we get to it. The requirements for these chibi prints like this, we're using 3 pieces of wood. Three pieces of wood carved on both sides. So one of the pieces of wood has this key block, of course. So that leaves 5 faces max for color blocks. So we could do 5 color blocks on this, which would give a lot of colors actually when we start with. So there's room for quite a bit of experimentation. But having said that, we don't want to go overboard with it. This is not a super refined and delicate thing. The printer has to work on this really quite quickly. We're going to need hundreds and hundreds of these things. That's why you can see the line work here is all fairly, they're not fat lines, but there's no super delicate approach to this. It's going to have to be pretty quick. What's next? What's next? We head for the scissors? Let's do the scissors. Be careful, there's a border line here. You know, making knives, yes, we have started a little bit. A bit of a project to, again, try and get some knives. In fact, Aoyama-san yesterday sent me the bill for a batch of blades that he's bought. In fact, it was funny because one of the projects cooking along in the background here these days is setting up our accounting system. You know, with the change to a company over the year end, the accounting all had to change to, you know, real double entry bookkeeping. So we've been building an accounting system. And he sent me that bill for the knife blades that he's ordered. And I had nowhere to put it into the accounting system. These are not tools for our use. These are not things for sale. These are just blades for testing and checking. I had no way to get these into the accounting system. So I had to go back to the setup and open a new account in our system for R&D. And this is actually new. We haven't had expenses specifically related to what you would call R&D. So he's got this new project cooking. He's bought some blades. I'll be testing them next week. And it's the first baby steps at seeing if it might be possible. There's no promises, no nothing yet at this point. The first baby steps to see if it might be possible to actually get some tools, some blades, knives out into the market. We were almost there nearly 10 years ago, but that supplier is no longer available. So we're starting from scratch again. He's got some steel, some blades for my testing. And we'll see how it goes. But again, I really wouldn't want everybody to get excited. The days Mokuhaka tools will be ready next week. I mean, that's not even remotely happening. Just simply we're exploring the idea to see if it might be possible. If we can find good steel, step one. It looks like a steady, stable supplier, step two. Then figure out how to make handles for them, do it ourselves, outsource them, laser, burn them, who knows, whatever. It's a long process. Just for starting. the paper making activities, if we did start making tools and stuff for making paper, of course, yes, it would go in the same place, in the same category. But, it's really bouncing down, you know, really bouncing. Luckily it's straight down, it's not a breath of wind, it's coming straight down. The camera is just inside the shutter. Perfect day for me. When I'm finished this stream, I'm going upstairs to do octopus testing. Get myself a cup of coffee and some octopus testing in the rain. Octopuses in the rain. So what's the time? We were talking about the show and tell. Is the video stable enough to do this? People telling me video's down, video's up. It seems okay. All right, let's do this. 9:15. Let's do this. Let's put the work away for a second here. Let's get rid of this. Zoom out of it. Still a bit wonky, but go for it. John says go for it. He's the boss here, so whatever. Okay, let's get rid of this. Okay, we have a book. This is not something I've just acquired. This is something that's been in the, bin here. Let's get a bit of a view. Get that stuff away. It's a book, and it's a book I bought back in sometime, 1993 or 1994, when I was working on the 100 Poets series. And the origin of the 100 Poets was I was using photographs of a copy that was in a museum here in Tokyo, in the Toyo Bunko. I had no access to the original at all, so I was using photographs from a museum copy. Partway along, maybe 1992 or so, I got a phone call from a dealer in London, a used print book dealer in London, who knew I was working on the Poet series. And he said, Dave, I've got a copy of the original book. Do you want it? And whatever, long story short, I said, yes, 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 yes. And the problem was he knew I wanted it, and he knew I wanted it badly. I was not a good businessman. He asked me for a rather stunning price, and he knew I wanted it, so I paid for it. It was a 500,000 yen. This book is not in the current market worth 500,000 yen. That's around $5,000. At the moment it would be worth something about 80% of that, I think. I'm not really quite sure. What we have here is the book Nishiki Hyakunin Azuma Ori. Where are we here? So, Nishiki Hyakunin Ishu Azuma Ori. This is written in really old-fashioned, flowery language. It would be, without knowing what it said, it would be impossible to read it. And I said that this is of specific interest to our American friends. And the reason is, this book was published back in the Edo era. This is not Showa, this is not Taisho, this is not Meiji, this is back in Edo. And this is the back. It's been worm-eaten a little bit. And this was published in An-ei, A-N-E-I, for the fourth year of An-ei. And it turns out that actually the calendars in the old year don't match exactly the calendars we have as a Gregorian calendar. But it turns out that this was published in 1777. To our American friends, 1776, this era looks something. So this book, the one that I'm holding in my hand, is a book that was published in the 1770s. it was carved at that time. Now this may have been printed the next year or 2 years or 3 years after that. I can't say exactly because there's no printing dates. The dates are carved on the blocks that they used to make it. And those blocks would have been used for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years as they sold the book. The covers here are not the original. It's been recovered because the back cover got totally eaten by worms. The front cover is the original cover. And it's got stickers on from various antique dealers and even one sticker from a library. You don't need to go there. I have no idea where the history of this book is, but there's stickers that have been on and removed. And one of the stickers, this is old. It's handwritten with like a quill pen, and it's the dealer on the Rue Lafitte in Paris. And I got it from a dealer in London. And here it is. This has now come back to Japan. And it's cool, you know. I mean, am I allowed to touch this? Of course I'm allowed to touch it. But it's pieces of paper that were rubbed and printed in the 1700s. And here we are. It's just like, whatever. Anybody can buy this and touch it and fool around with it. Now this is the original that I used to make my series from. Now the original book, you can see it's about a B5 size, and it's made up of people and calligraphy of the poems. Now this, it turns out, is the second edition, not the first edition. The first edition had the poetry drawn by the same guy that did the pictures, Shuncho. A year or so later, it wasn't selling well. They carved that poetry off and hired a hot gun, a guy called Sakayama, Chikayuki Sayama, to do the calligraphy. And he was very, very famous in his day. And once they put his calligraphy on it, bang, it started to sell. And nowadays, when we see copies coming up in the used book market, we usually see his version. Let's zoom in a little bit. And the book, what it is, because it's a book, they had limitations on what they were able to do for production. I made this series as 100 separate prints over the course of 10 years. So when I made my version, what I did was, one, I enlarged it, of course, for making separate larger prints, and I used a wider range of colors. The whole entire book is made with just 6 or 7 colors. There's a basic red, a basic green, a basic pink, and page after page after page, for the most part, uses the same colors, because they were trying to keep the price of the book down. For me, price wasn't a factor, so I used more colors in mine. But here we have it. It's just so much fun for me to touch this and turn the pages and enjoy it. And there's a couple of things I should have perhaps prepped this so I could find this without hunting for it. One day when I was looking through the book here, turned one of the pages and something fell out from inside. Let me see if I can quickly find it without turning 100 pages. Here it is. Turning these pages in. You know how Japanese books are made? They're printed open, folded back, and bound in the middle. So this sheet and this sheet, they're the same piece of paper, just folded, because you can't print on the back side of a piece of Japanese paper. So you print only on one face, fold it, put it in. Anyway, I'm going through this book one day, years and years ago, and something, if I reach inside here, it's a leaf. A Shogun's library card. Sorry about this, nothing quite so interesting as that. It's a leaf from what we call a ginkgo tree, icho in Japanese. And I'm like, what is this? And it turns out here and there in the book, there's maybe 3 or 4 or 5 of them stuffed inside the book. So I'm like, somebody was trying to press some leaves. You know, maybe I did that when I was a kid. I got some leaves and pressed them inside a book. No. What this is, now it has no meaning at all, but at the time when the leaf was still active and yellowish or greenish or whatever, it gave off a strong aroma. A ginkgo tree, the nuts stink like crazy. This is a tree with attitude. And it turns out that the leaves give off some kind of a thing that bugs don't like. So if you want your book not to get eaten by the bookworms, you put here and there inside it some of these leaves. Now this is now totally dry. There's no rosins or anything left in it. But some of the pages, you can see where the leaf was, and there's a faint mark on the paper around that part where different kinds of stuff came out of the leaf at the time. But here we have, this is an antique. This leaf must be, well, I can't guarantee it's from 1776 because maybe some post owner did it. But this leaf, whatever, do we do a DNA test? Back she goes. The carving is nice, you know. Something else about the book, if we go back to the back page, the hair is really, really nicely carved. If we go back to the back page, there are two names listed here. One name is, well, one way to pronounce this is Gakka, Shoka Gakka, and this is a fancy name. It's I think it's Ridin, I can't remember exactly, Ridin Katsukawa, it's Katsukawa Shunsho with extra characters and the more flowery name. So this is Katsukawa Shunsho, a designer of maybe Kabuki prints. But also we have here Jokoku. This is the carver's name. He didn't carve every stroke of every page of this book. He is the leader of the carving team. And we know his name. He's a known carver of the day. Inoue Shichiro. He must have been the seventh son in the family. And his name is known and respected. People who know about the carvers of the old days know this guy's name. Inoue Shichiro. And there are no printers' names listed because, of course, there's no reason to put them on the woodblocks. You didn't even know at that point who was going to be printing. There's a bit of a downside to this. When I got the book, it's 100 poets. There's supposed to be 50 pages of 100 poets. I took the book and used it and started to make photographs from this to guide my own carving. And one day it would have been, I don't know, whatever, 1996 or 7 or 8 or whatever, next month's print, ready to get next month's print, pull my book out, get ready to photograph it, and I couldn't find the poet. I'm like, I know they're all in here. They weren't all in here. At that point, I counted the pages, and it turns out there was a page missing. Somewhere along the line, and the dealer didn't tell me this, maybe he didn't even know, somebody had torn out one of the pages. They must have wanted one of the particular poets. So here he is. David realizes he's stuck with this book that he paid $5,000 for. That's actually damaged goods and is missing one page. So I wrote about this in my newsletter at the time. And a few months later got a really, really interesting letter from somebody. This is before email. This is whatever. This is sending out newsletters in the mail in 1993 or something. And I got an actual physical letter in the mail. It was from a man in, I think it was Portland somewhere in Oregon there. And he was a collector of antique books and antique prints. And he also had a copy of this book. And also he had a flood in his house one day, which destroyed a huge part of his antique book collection. Anyway, he said, Dave, we rescued some of the stuff from the flood. Some of it was muddy, some of it was thrown away. A lot of the books came apart. He said, I have a bunch of loose pages from my copy of the Shunsho book. Tell me which two you're missing. Maybe we can make beautiful music together. And I'm like, okay. So I did. I replied to him by post, and it turned out that in his collection of torn, stained scraps, he had the 2 pages that I was missing. Long story short, he sent them to me, and I don't have them, I haven't yet actually bound them together, but I have over in the Ome workshop, I have a nice folder with the 2 missing pages put into it, just waiting for the day when one day I can get in here, cut the strings, take this apart, refresh it a bit, put his pages inside, and put the book back together as a real complete package of the 100 poets. And of course, I don't remember exactly, I sent him some prints as a thank you or something like this, whatever. And he was so cool just to be able to use his resources to help put this thing back together. The 2 pages are a bit stained. And actually, they're on a bit of a different quality paper. They would have been printed from a different edition, maybe a bit later, because they were really, really quite thin and rabbly paper. This book was an expensive production in its own day, and it used quite a strong, quite thick, nice paper. No, you can cut the strings. This book itself, it's been opened and rebound any number of times. When I say this is from the 1770s, the paper and the object itself is from the 1770s, but it would absolutely have been opened and rebound. And as I said, the back cover is not original. The back cover, somebody's got a piece of blue paper that sort of roughly matches the original tint. Because this was on a bookshelf somewhere or left sitting somewhere, and the bookworms really attacked it coming from the back. So the back 3 or 4 or 5 pages are heavily eaten by bookworms. So no, cutting the string and rebinding it is something that is normally done. I mean, you don't have to be a licensed antique restorer to do that sort of thing. Do I have a poet? No, to me now, when I was doing this series, each month as I was carving a print, I sort of read the poetry and studied it and looked it up. But now it's nothing to me. It's very, I don't know what word to say. It's for a specialist. It's really for a specialist. They're just words that come together to make pictures and patterns in your mind, like any poetry does, I guess. But I know not enough about the culture to be able to enjoy that. They're all courtiers of the day. The ladies are ladies of the court. The men are, what would they call them? Courtiers, I guess. There's really no warrior class here. There are some priests mixed in. 11 of the 100 people are priests, and there's a bunch of emperors. I think 19 of the people selected for the book were people who have been an emperor. And you can see here the problem with the colors. They made the whole book with, as I said, a very limited range of colors. So most of the women have the same thing, a red hakama and a yellow kimono. So when I came time to make my single prints one by one by one by one by one, of course, I took the time and trouble to use different coloring on my own prints when I made those. And somebody, maybe you know, somebody's mentioning the card game. In the era when this was done, the card game didn't exist. There was no carta with cards that they slapped around. That started in the Meiji time. But in this era, there were games. They put the poems on shells and matched them up left and right. But there was no card game. That started in the Meiji time. Anyway, there we have it. When I was up in my room this morning before the stream started looking for something from the shelf to pick up, I thought this might be interesting. There's lots and lots and lots of information on the 100 Poets out online. It's a major, major cultural thing for Japan. There is something else maybe just mentioned. Before I close off, there's one last thing to show about this book. I had mentioned that the first edition was done with calligraphy by the same guy who did the drawings. In fact, when I made my own reproduction, I did that. I used the original calligraphy edition. So this is drawing by Shuncho, calligraphy by Shuncho. As I said, it seems that it didn't sell very well. The publisher said, cut and run. He took the blocks, carved the calligraphy off the blocks, and then he must have carved calligraphy on separate pieces of wood. Because when we see now, the calligraphy is a rich black, but the key block is quite grey. So the calligraphy, new calligraphy, would have been on a separate block. But, if you take my book, which is nominally the second edition, let's see if we can zoom in here at this point. What do we see here? Do you see what I'm seeing? You're seeing the shape of calligraphy. This is the calligraphy from the first edition. So the book I'm holding in my hands was printed from those early blocks before the calligraphy had been carved off. So what they must have done was, before they took the big major decision, carve off the old calligraphy, they must have printed a few copies of the book with the calligraphy masked off, rubbed pigment on it, put a bit of tissue here or something, printed this, and the calligraphy didn't print in color, but the lettering was still on the block, so it came up as a kind of embossing, as a kind of karazuri. Then they printed these, as I said, from separate blocks. Now, every other copy of this book I've seen over the years, and every time I see one, I get a look at it and open it, it doesn't have this embossing. At some point, the guy must have said, okay, look, this new version is going to sell. Okay, guys, to make it easy to print, get your chisels and rip off all that old calligraphy. So the book that I have in my hands is the transition volume. I don't know how many they made. They wouldn't have just made one. They would have made at least a few dozen or so to put them in the market, see if they'd sell. So this is the transition volume while the blocks were still in the original condition, but before they had taken the decision, scoop them off and go for it. Really, really, really cool. It's nothing to do with money. Oh my God, put this in Sotheby's, we'll make $1 million. It's just a really cool thing. And any of the images where the calligraphy comes close to the original person, you can see it. It is embossed in this version. And actually, it's kind of lucky that this book fell into my hands, because I'm one of the few people in the world who would have actually known about this and then figured out what was going on here. So there we have it. There we have it. There we have it. Pride of place in our collection. It's maybe the most expensive thing I own. I guess so. Don't have any intention of selling it. And even in the current market, I don't think it would sell for very much at all. There's not so much of a market for books. And in fact, what's happened over the years, of course, when a dealer here in Japan gets something like this, he has two choices. He can try and sell it for, say, $5,000, the going price. The number of people who are willing to spend $5,000 on a book like this are, you can count them, you don't need one hand to count that. So what the dealers do, they cut the strings, they take them apart, they take the book, they cut, and they put the individual prints in their shop. Original 801775 woodblock print, $200! And they sell 100 pages at, say, $200 each. Do the math, they get 20,000. And the book becomes destroyed. That's the way they go. That's why there are not so many of these things left. Okay, anyway, enough talk. Today's Sunday. I'll be back Monday. I'm going to spend the next week and now totally doing test printing on the Octopus. So you will see no progress at all on this block until I get back Monday morning, when we will do some more work on it. Thanks so much, guys. See you next time. See you on Monday. I'm sorry if there's been stream problems here. I'm still seeing a total green dashboard, so this time I don't think we can blame you. Sometimes, yes. See you Monday morning. And watch out for an email coming soon next week announcing a new print available from our workshop. Bye-bye. Thanks for now.